Okay, folks, buckle up, because today we're taking a deep dive into something you probably haven't thought much about.
That's right.
We're talking about turning quail poop, yes, you heard that right, into fertilizer.
Exactly.
I know, I know. It might sound a little strange, a little out there, but trust me on this one. The science behind it, it's actually pretty fascinating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And who knows, maybe by the end of this, you'll be inspired to start your own little backyard fertilizer operation.
Well, a backyard operation might not be necessary, but it's certainly a fascinating idea.
Okay, good. That's
Yep.
a relief. So, to get us started, what kind of stuff did we dig up for this deep dive?
Well, for this one, we dove into some research articles that really get into the nitty-gritty of how this whole process works. And trust me, it's a lot more complicated than just, scooping up some droppings and sprinkling them on your plants.
Okay, so that's good to know. So where does this scientific journey begin? Where do we even start something like this?
Well, our story starts in Thailand, where quail farming is a really big deal, a major industry. And these farms, they generate a ton of quail litter, and that's manure, bedding material, all the leftovers.
Okay, so we've got mountains of quail litter. So what's the next step? How do we go from, this, let's call it raw material, to actual usable fertilizer?
Right, and that's where the innovation comes in.
Mm,
See, fresh quail litter, well, it's not exactly gardener-friendly, let's
I
say.
can imagine.
It's got all sorts of things you don't want: pathogens, parasites, heavy metals, and then there's, well, the aroma.
Yeah, I think I'll pass on the quail farm.
Yeah.
So how do they tackle these challenges?
Right. So the key is a process they call pelleting. Basically, they take this quail litter and they compress it, heat it up to some seriously high temperatures, over 90 degrees Celsius, and what you get are these tiny little pellets.
Oh, okay. So it's kind of like baking those quail droppings into like fertilizer cookies or something.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
So, but besides just making it, less messy,
Right.
what are the benefits of doing this?
Right. So there are tons of benefits. Firstly, that high heat, it takes care of those harmful microorganisms, and it pretty much eliminates that potent odor we talked about.
Right. That's a win for everyone, especially our noses.
Absolutely. And secondly, pelleting dries things out,
Oh, okay.
reduces the moisture content significantly, so it's way easier to handle, easier to store, to transport. No more soggy piles of,
Right. So it's more practical, much more user-friendly fertilizer all around.
Exactly.
But so what about the nutrients? I mean, what's actually happening scientifically during this whole pelleting process? Like, are those nutrients being concentrated?
That's where the science gets really interesting. The research shows some pretty surprising changes in the quail litter's composition after it's been pelleted.
Okay.
For instance, both sources we looked at, they showed a reduction in organic carbon and total nitrogen after pelleting.
Wait, hold on. Less nitrogen?
Yeah.
But isn't that one of the key things plants need, like one of the key nutrients?
Oh, absolutely. Nitrogen is, it's crucial for plant growth,
Okay.
but it seems like that intense heat from the pelleting, it causes some of the organic matter and nitrogen to break down.
So is it like a trade-off,
Yeah.
between concentrating the nutrients and making it easier to use?
Well, not exactly a trade-off. It's more nuanced than that. While you do lose some nitrogen, pelleting also has this other effect.
Okay.
It lowers the pH level, so the fertilizer ends up being a bit more acidic.
Okay. And is that a good thing?
It is, actually, especially in places like Thailand,
Okay.
where the soil is naturally more acidic. So it's kind of like they're customizing the fertilizer to match the soil conditions.
Wow, that's pretty clever.
Yeah.
But you mentioned heavy metals earlier. Is that a concern with this pelleted quail litter?
Yeah, that's a really important point, and the research does highlight a potential issue there.
Yeah.
While pelleting does a good job of reducing some heavy metals, it can actually increase the levels of others, like iron and lead.
Yeah.
And it seems like contamination from the machinery might be playing a role.
Huh. So it's not like, a completely perfect solution then.
Right.
There are still like some potential downsides that we need to consider.
Exactly. No solution is without its challenges.
Okay.
But the research really emphasizes how important quality control is. They actually found a correlation between how much dry matter is in the pelleted quail litter
Okay.
and its nitrogen compounds. So by keeping a close eye on the dry matter, producers can get a good idea of the overall nitrogen content
Okay.
and make sure they're producing a consistent, safe product.
Okay, so this is way more complicated than I initially thought.
Right.
We've gone from like, ooh, quail poop, to, wow, this is some pretty sophisticated fertilizer.
I know, right? And we've really just scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to uncover as we keep going.
Oh, okay, well, great. All right, so welcome back to our deep dive into, well, quail poop fertilizer.
Yes.
It's amazing what we're learning about turning, waste into something so valuable.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. But, before we get too ahead of ourselves and start, thinking we can turn all our trash into treasure, I'm kind of curious about something you touched on earlier.
Okay.
This whole thing about the nutrient content and how it can vary.
Right.
So are all quail droppings created equal?
That's a great question. And actually, the research we looked at, it goes into that exact topic.
Okay.
And it turns out, yeah, there can be a pretty big difference in the nutrients you find in, well, both the fresh and the pelleted quail litter.
Uh-huh.
They looked at samples from different production cycles.
Yeah.
And what they found were these differences in, well, in things like dry matter, electrical conductivity, even the levels of certain nitrogen compounds.
Electrical conductivity.
Yeah.
You're going to have to explain that one to me,
Right.
like I'm 5.
Yeah.
What does electricity have to do with quail poop?
I know it sounds a little weird, but basically electrical conductivity is how well a solution, so in this case like water mixed with the quail litter,
Okay.
how well it can conduct electricity. It's a way to measure how many dissolved salts and minerals are in there,
Okay.
and that can give us an idea of the overall nutrient content.
So it's kind of like a quick snapshot of how nutrient-rich that litter is.
You got it. And what they found was the fresh quail litter, it had way more variation in that electrical conductivity compared to the pelleted stuff.
So pelleting, it doesn't just make it more manageable, but it also it standardizes the nutrient content.
Exactly.
That seems like a pretty big win for farmers, who need to know exactly what they're giving to their crops.
Right. Consistency is key in agriculture, and pelleting helps achieve that.
Yeah.
It's like taking this wild ingredient and you're refining it into something reliable and predictable.
It's like that baking analogy again, right?
Yeah.
Like we're taking these raw quail droppings and we're turning them into, carefully measured fertilizer cookies.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. And speaking of baking, that high heat used in pelleting, well, that plays a big role in all these changes.
Okay, yeah. Speaking of that heat, I remember you mentioned, I think it was in the last part, that it can increase levels of some of those heavy metals like lead and iron.
Right.
Is that a big concern? Are we talking like toxic levels here?
That's a good question, and we definitely need more research on that front. The levels they found in the studies weren't super high,
Okay.
but it's something to be aware of. Maybe there are ways to tweak the pelleting process, minimize that contamination, maybe look at different materials for the machines themselves.
So even with these innovative solutions, there's always room for improvement.
Oh,
It's pretty amazing though, right?
Yeah.
Taking something that just seems like a waste product
right.
and transforming it into a valuable resource.
It is pretty amazing. And it's
Yeah.
not just about, helping farmers out.
Yeah.
There's a much bigger picture here.
Yeah.
This research it's pointing to this future, right, where we move away from this linear production model where we just create tons of waste, and instead we embrace this circular economy where that waste is seen as a valuable input.
I'm all for reducing waste and being, more sustainable, but I got to admit I'm still kind of hung up on that missing nitrogen thing,
Right.
The one you mentioned, I think, in the first part.
Yeah.
Where does it go when they heat up the litter during the pelleting?
That is the million-dollar question, and unfortunately, the research doesn't really give us a straight answer.
Oh.
It just mentions that the nitrogen losses, they go up with higher temperatures.
Yeah.
But you know what? This gap in our knowledge, this is a great opportunity for more research.
Yeah. So instead of just, accepting that some nitrogen is lost,
Yeah.
we need to figure out what's happening to it.
Right.
And maybe even find ways to capture it and use it.
Yeah.
Make the process even better, more sustainable.
Exactly. There's so much potential for innovation in this area. Maybe we can come up with new pelleting technologies that minimize that nitrogen loss or find ways to, capture and repurpose those nitrogen compounds.
That's what I call a real deep dive, not just finding the answers, but also uncovering the questions that lead to even more exciting discoveries.
Well said. Well said. And speaking of discoveries, there was one finding about that dry matter content that really caught my eye.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Come on, don't leave me hanging. Tell me more.
Well, we'll dive into that juicy detail, that fascinating detail in the last part of our deep dive.
Okay.
It's a head scratcher for sure, but it really highlights, just how complex this seemingly simple process really is.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome back, everyone, to the final part of our, our quail poop to fertilizer saga.
It's been quite a journey.
It has. And, now that we've really gotten into the nitty gritty, all the details,
Yep.
I want to zoom out a little.
Okay.
Think big picture. What does this whole innovative process tell us about the future of agriculture, about sustainability?
I think this story, it goes way beyond fertilizer. It's really a great example of shifting our mindset, right? Going from this idea that we have all this waste to seeing value in things we usually just, toss aside.
It's almost like alchemy, turning lead into gold.
Yeah.
But in this case, it's turning, poop into, not gold exactly, but something pretty valuable.
Right.
This resource that can, nourish our crops, sustain us.
Exactly. It's all about those circular economy principles.
Okay.
Where we're minimizing waste and we're, constantly recycling, bringing resources back into the system. And this is huge, especially now, right?
Yeah.
With all the environmental challenges we're facing and the need to feed a growing population. It makes you wonder, what else are we overlooking?
Right. Like what other so-called waste products are out there?
Exactly.
Just waiting for us to, see their hidden potential.
Because that's what's so cool about innovation. It forces us to question everything,
Yeah.
see the world differently. And nature's a pro at this whole circular economy thing, right? It's constantly recycling, repurposing stuff.
So it's not just about like new tech. It's about changing how we think about waste
Yeah.
and having a more holistic approach to how we manage our resources.
Exactly. And even though this research focuses on quail litter, specifically those principles, the techniques, they can be applied to all kinds of agricultural waste.
Okay.
And imagine, what if we could take, manure from cows, pigs, chickens, all of it, and turn it into, high quality fertilizer.
It's amazing to think about the impact that could have, not just on the environment, but on our whole food system.
Yeah.
But okay, before we get too carried away dreaming about a future with, zero waste, let's go back to that cliffhanger.
Oh, right.
The one from last time.
Yeah.
What's the deal with this mysterious dry matter connection?
The mystery of the dry matter. So what they found was there's this strong correlation between how much dry matter is in that pelleted quail litter
Okay.
and the levels of those nitrogen compounds. But here's the thing, that correlation, it wasn't there in the fresh litter.
So something about the actual pelleting process is changing that relationship.
Right. But why? That's the big question.
Yeah.
And the research doesn't give us a clear answer. It's like they see this correlation, but they don't really dig into, the reasons behind it.
So we're left with more questions than answers.
Yeah, and that's pretty exciting from a scientific point of view.
It's like we found this hidden doorway and we can't wait to see what's on the other side.
Exactly. This unexplained correlation, it's a whole new avenue for research, right? What's
Yeah.
happening at like a molecular level during that pelleting process?
Right.
What's creating this link between the dry matter and the nitrogen?
Yeah.
If we can figure that out, well, who knows? Maybe we can come up with even better quality control methods, even more efficient ways to make fertilizer that's perfect for different crops, different soils.
This is a perfect example of how even when we make these big discoveries, there's always more to learn, always something else to explore, to uncover. That's what makes science so awesome.
Right. Couldn't agree more. It's a constant reminder that the world is full of, wonders and mysteries, and it's our curiosity that pushes us to keep searching, keep learning.
Well, folks, our deep dives into the world of quail poop fertilizer has come to an end, but I hope this is just the beginning of your exploration. Keep those minds curious, keep those imaginations sparked, and who knows what amazing discoveries you might make. Until next time, happy exploring.